Hi, my name is Usman. I'm a photographer at Sonder Creative and staff writer at fstoppers.com, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Feiyu-tech A2000 Gimbal. Now, there are plenty of gimbals available in the market, which means there's lots and lots of choice, and Feiyu-tech is one of those companies that tends to make really good gimbals. I've had the pleasure of using and owning a bunch of their gimbals, and the A2000 is their flagship model. It's the gimbal that you're going to use if you're a little bit more serious about video, and if you have a system or a rig which is a little bit heavier, because this gimbal can hold up to 2 kilograms, which is great, because what it means is you can comfortably put a Canon 5D Mark IV with a 2470 onto this gimbal and maybe even throw in a microphone or a display, and everything's going to be really well balanced. Now, there are two versions of this gimbal that you can buy, the single handle kit or the dual handle kit. Now, I would strongly recommend you spend that little bit extra and buy the dual handle kit because it offers much more flexibility. It's a much better system, a more well-rounded system. For one, the footage is going to look much smoother, much better from the dual handle kit than it does from the single handle. And the reason is that when I was filming with the single handle, I just saw this odd little, odd shakes and this little jerkiness in the footage that I wasn't seeing when I was using the dual handle grip. Obviously, you've got a better frame holding, the camera with both arms, so it's going to be much more stable. Second thing is, if you try balancing your camera on the single handle unit, the only thing I want to say is good luck, because although they give you this little tripod that you can mount at the bottom and you can put it onto a table and try and balance the camera, it's a horrible experience. I've dropped my camera a couple of times. Fortunately, I caught it in between, but really horrible way of balancing the camera. As soon as you put the gimbal onto the dual handle grip, you can balance it much more effectively. It's much quicker, and with that setup and trying to balance this camera and the gimbal, I found it to be very pleasant in terms of experience. Also, setup wise, I could balance this camera in about a minute and a half. I think that someone who's a little bit more experienced would probably do it a little bit faster, but I'm not an expert in terms of these kind of things. But with the dual handle grip, it was that easy. And the other thing to know is that once you balance the camera on the dual handle grip, it's also balanced for the single handle grip, because you could just take it off, put it onto the single handle, and there, it's perfectly balanced. And that's the great thing about this system and this gimbal. The dual handle grip isn't just like a metal frame add-on to the single handle unit, it's its own unit. It has its own electronic contacts, you put the batteries in there, it's got its little joystick that you can use, and it's a proper full-on system. And you can take the actual gimbal off that and put it onto the single handle unit and vice versa, which makes it a much more well-rounded system. When you put the single handle unit on the tripod, the center of gravity is really off and there's a good chance it might fall. I'm not going to risk that. I put it on once and it's just a little bit risky. Again, really recommend you use the dual handle grip. You can put it onto the tripod. You've got two tripod mounts on the bottom, depending on whether the camera's front heavy or back heavy, and then putting it onto your tripod, much easier, and then it's just going to be much more balanced for those time lapses. In terms of footage, obviously it's very good, but that's to be expected. You're not going to buy a gimbal if the footage isn't smooth. However, once again, the dual handle grip system is much smoother and much better in terms of the footage that you produce. Also, there was something that I noticed with the gimbal when I was using it with the single handle unit, and that's that on occasions it would just start shaking really bad. The motors would start getting really loud, and it's as though it's not able to hold the weight of the camera, and then it would just start making this noise. Never had that with the dual handle grip. Not sure why that was happening. I spoke to Feiyu-tech and they were saying that you need to balance the camera more effectively, which I did. And when I was being much more conscious about how I was balancing the camera, I minimized that. But still, it's not something I've experienced with some of the other gimbals that I've used. But again, when you put it onto the dual handle grip, I guess you're seeing a theme here. Get the dual handle grip, it's that much better. The other thing is, I really like the features that this gimbal offers, and I mean, I'm not the kind of YouTuber that does a lot of parkour filming or music videos or extreme sports. That's not the kind of footage, that's not the kind of filming that I do. So there wasn't any point in me doing that because, well, I never do that anyway. And I think there's a massive market of YouTubers or people or filmmakers who don't actually do that but still want really smooth looking footage, and I'm obviously part of that community, and that's how I wanted to review this. But the thing that I really like about this gimbal is the fact that it offers you the ability to make moving time lapses. That's something that I absolutely love in this gimbal. I can put it onto a tripod, and using the app that you get from Feiyu-tech, you go in, it connects with the Feiyu-tech A2000 gimbal very seamlessly. It just finds it. I haven't found any situations where it's not finding the gimbal or anything like that. It just finds it straight away, and then you go in, you put the settings in as to how long you want the movement to be or what kind of movement you want, and then you just turn time-lapse mode on in the camera and away you go. Hyperlapses are another thing that I really enjoy doing with this gimbal because it was very straightforward. I wish that the single-hand unit would have worked better because it is a much lighter setup. It's a smaller setup because I can carry it around, I can take it around with me much more effectively, but from my experience and from what I've seen, it's much more practical in terms of the end result for me to use the dual handle grip. It's just much better. The setup is much easier, it's much quicker to do with the dual handle grip. The footage and the kind of footage that you get is also much better. You can mount it on a tripod much more effectively than you can with a single-handed unit, and just all of those things that really add up essentially mean that the dual handle grip is kind of the thing that I'm going to be using on a daily basis. There were a few things that I didn't like about the actual gimbal and the system overall. For one, although the app is very good, it's still a little bit clunky and not very clear. It's not very intuitive in terms of how you're supposed to use it and how to get all the settings as the way that you want it to. Yes, I eventually figured it out, but in terms of intuitiveness, I wish it was just a little bit more simple. Also, the motor on the back does block the back of the screen. Now, this is a relatively unfair point that I'm making against the Feiyu-tech A2000 because, you know, it's not the gimbal's fault that you can't see the screen, because there are some cameras where you can have a flip out screen, and you can also with the 5D Mark IV, for example, you could just connect it to your iPhone and have the iPhone on the actual dual handle grip on the top, and then away you go. So bit of an unfair comment against the A2000. However, I'm still gonna make it, and that's that when I didn't want any extra weight with an extra display or anything like that, and I just wanted to use the 5D Mark IV on the gimbal, composition was really difficult, because especially when I was trying to do some of those low angle shots where I was working with this ballet dancer and we were just taking some footage, and it was really difficult for me to get that composition right. However, once you've got the composition right and you know what kind of footage you're gonna get, or if you're using an external display, things are really good and you get some really nice looking footage. The other thing is the weight of the gimbal. Remember, this gimbal can hold up to 2 kilograms, and the gimbal itself weighs about a kilogram, maybe more, especially with the dual handle grip. The weight does eventually start adding up, and I found myself pulling the gimbal down a lot more than I thought I would be, especially when I was using it with the 5D Mark IV and the 2470. Admittedly, when I was using it with my Sony camera and a small prime, it was a good setup. It was fairly light, and because that camera setup is much lighter, when I put it onto the single handle unit, I didn't see those odd shakes and that weird jerkiness that I was seeing with some of the other camera systems on the single handle unit. Ultimately, I'd say that this is a fantastic gimbal. It produces some incredible quality in terms of the footage. It's very smooth, especially when you're using dual handle grip. Yes, there are a few things that I don't like about the gimbal, but ultimately this gimbal is improving the kind of footage that I'm creating and the kind of clips that I'm creating, and it's improving my workflow. So that's the most important point. Yes, I would have wished that the smaller, lighter setup would have been more effective, but you know, I'm happy using the dual handle grip because I can put it onto a tripod and do all the other things that I want to do as well. I mean, even if you're just vlogging and you're just, you know, holding your camera in front of you and talking away at it, it's a much better option to use this gimbal than it is to use a Joby tripod. Admittedly, the Joby tripod is going to be much lighter, but it's much more jarring to look at and much shakier. And when you compare it to the Feiyu-tech, you get much smoother looking footage. So far, I've used this gimbal for about a month and a half, maybe 2 months now, and I have to say, it's a fantastic gimbal. Highly recommend it. Also, just want to give a massive thank you to Feiyu-tech for sending me this gimbal. Really appreciate it. I'm very thankful. As I said, I've been using it for the last couple of months. I'm very pleased with the results that I'm producing. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. I will try and get back to you as soon as possible. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Also, make sure you're following me on F-Stoppers for the latest in terms of the articles that I'm writing. And I hope to see you guys in the next one. Thank you.